Hey guys, how's it going? Justin here with Keystone Mountain Outdoors. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, what we're going to be going over is my PRS rifle build for the upcoming 2023 season. Now, if you guys haven't already, definitely head over to Instagram and give our page a follow. It's Keystone Mountain Outdoors on Instagram. I've been posting a lot of behind the scenes content on this rifle as well as some other projects that we got going on the channel. If you guys would, I would appreciate the support. Also, if you guys enjoy this type of content, we're going to have a lot more PRS content and a lot more of the content that we've been bringing you for years. Suppressors, different guns, SBRs, all that whole stuff. It's all going to be coming. So if you guys haven't already, definitely feel free to hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend, help us out. The YouTube channel is not a paid YouTube channel. We make no money off this. I purely do these videos for your entertainment. So all the support helps. With that housekeeping out of the way, I got a couple disclaimers I got to hit you with, and then I promise we'll get into the overview of this rifle. Disclaimer number one, all the products that we're going to be talking about today that are on this rifle, I bought and paid for with my hard-earned money. There's no products that were sent to me because of the YouTube channel for review or anything like that. All these products were sold to me at full price. Some of the stuff I shopped around and got discounts, but none of them had to do with the YouTube channel. The second disclaimer that I got to hit you with is by no means am I doing this video to try to portray myself as a pro level shooter. I'm new to the PRS game. I've been around it a little bit. I've went to a couple matches. I've shot a couple matches. However, by no means am an expert on this subject matter. I got a lot of advice from some pretty high level shooters in my area. I got to go out to some matches, play around with different people's gear, shoot some people's rifles, dry fire some people's rifles, and kind of figure out what I wanted to go with. I took a lot of recommendations from some pretty high level shooters to put together this rifle. So with those disclaimers out of the way, let's get into the rifle. So if you're not familiar, I want to give you guys a real quick rundown on PRS to kind of understand why I put together this rifle the way I did. So PRS stands for Precision Rifle Series. Essentially what PRS style competitions are based around is you're shooting various different size targets out to distances of 1,200 or so yards. Most of your targets are going to be in that 400 to 800 range, give or take. But different stages, different competitions, different ranges are going to dictate the ranges a little bit differently. But oftentimes you're shooting these off of barricades and unstable positions and stuff like that. It really kind of drives home the fundamentals into the shooter, really kind of makes you a better shooter in my opinion. The whole kind of premise behind this rifle is to compete in the game. So a lot of these components are going to be specific to game components. If I was building a hunting rifle, I would probably build it completely different. The game within the game of PRS is being able to spot your impacts and spot your misses and get yourself centered up on target. That way, that next trigger press is going to get you the most amount of points that you could get. So with all that out of the way, let's get into going over this rifle. Let's start off with the action. A lot of guys are going to build their rifle around a Remington 700 custom action. The action is what you're going to live with the longest. You don't need the fanciest action in the world, but the action is something that I would say you're going to live with the longest, so buy a good one off the get-go. I opted to go for the Impact Precision 737 receiver. The Impact 737 is Impact short action receiver. It's probably, if not one of the most popular actions out there for PRS. The guy that's won the PRS season the last 4 years in a row, it's all been different guys. They've all won with Impact 737. So this is kind of a staple in the PRS world. It's one of, if not the most popular actions out there for good reason. They're really, really smooth actions, really, really reliable, really well-made actions. Moving on from the action, let's talk barrels. So the Impact 737 can accept pre-fit barrels, which maybe in future videos we'll get into. But I opted to have this barrel spun up by a local gunsmith. This started life as a Hawk Hill M24 barrel blank chambered in 6mm. It was cut to 26 inches, threaded 5/8 24, and chambered in 6mm BR by Basecamp Customs. Ryan Beck over at Basecamp Customs did a phenomenal job on this rifle. If you're in the market for something like this, again, not sponsored in any way, but Ryan's been great building this rifle. He's become a friend. He's helped me with a lot of advice, not only on the rifle side, but the reloading side, the competition side, all that stuff. He's been a really good dude, and this rifle is an absolute tack driver. It easily shoots half-inch groups at 100 yards, half MOA, and I shot it yesterday out to distance. We shot out to 1,200 yards at various different targets at a KYL match, and this rifle was an absolute laser whenever I did my part. I'll roll up some pictures of some of the standings at, I think it was 1,045 or 1,145. I, almost cleaned his stage. The only reason I didn't get a perfect score was instead of shooting the mini target, I shot the number 3 target twice. So I gave up a couple points, but I got all hits there. That little target was pretty little for that distance, so that's why I opted to not go for it. But moving along from that, the barrel is an absolute tack driver. Hitting on the caliber real quick, 6mm BR, 6mm bench rest Norma is a caliber that's really kind of been around for years. It's one of those calibers that's super soft shooting, easy to load for. It's going to give you pretty good barrel life versus something like 6.5 Creed, or excuse me, 6 Creed. So there's tons of advantages to 6BR. Maybe in a future video we'll cover it. And the main reason I went with it is barrel life, recoil, availability of parts and components, and it's just one of those calibers that's easy to load for. Moving along from the barrel and the chambering, I want to hit on the muzzle brake. So the muzzle brake that I opted to go for is the Area 419 Hellfire Match muzzle brake. If you guys are a fan of the channel, you guys know that I'm a suppressor fanatic. And the main reason why I opted to not put a suppressor on the end of here is just simply because in the game of PRS, it's really all about recoil management. And there's no doubt that a dedicated big muzzle brake like this is going to be better at recoil reduction than a suppressor. Does this caliber kick? By no means no. But you want it to move as little as possible. That way, it's a speed game. It's a speed, it's an accuracy game, all that stuff. So, in the game of PRS, most guys are going to be running muzzle brakes. You can run a suppressor, but you're giving up a little bit of a competitive advantage there. So I opted to go for a muzzle brake. Most guys are going to be running muzzle brakes. You're going to be wearing ears anyways. Area 419 Hellfire Match brake is really one of those brakes that is kind of one of the best that you could get as of this moment. It's a really good brake, and it's also not super concussive to the shooter, which is a really big advantage in my personal opinion. Moving along from that, the next thing I want to hit on is going to be the mags. So in the mag realm, a lot of guys are going to be running Accuracy International AICS mags. Single stack 10 rounders is what most guys run. There's also AIAW mags, which are double stack, double feed. They're going to be about half the length. The thing with AW mags is you have to make sure that you get a receiver that's cut to accept it. The Impact 737, the standard one, does not come cut for AW, but they do have an option for the AW cut, which I opted to go for. The AW cut is backwards compatible, but the mags that I'm actually running right now are MDT mags. The MDT mags are kind of a hybrid. Instead of being a single stack or a double stack, they're a double stack to single feed. So they're going to give you a better chance for reliability. However, they're going to be a little bit shorter than a standard mag. These are actually 12-round MDT mags. They do make them in 10s as well. Also, the MDT mags, they have the option for a 6BR, 6-dasher from the factory. So it's going to run your dasher, BR, BRAs from the factory. You're not going to need a follow or kit like you would with an AICS or an AIAW mag. Moving along from the mags, the next thing we're going to talk is chassis. So you could run any number of different chassis, stocks. There's tons of different options you could go with. I played with a lot of people's gear and was kind of recommended the chassis realm. And in and of the chassis that I tried, I thought they were all pretty good, but it was one of those things where I just had to buy one, use it for a little bit, and figure out what my needs are, what my wants are, what my preferences are. I opted to go for the MPA Matrix chassis. The MPA Matrix chassis is one of, if not, one of the better chassis that you could get out there. I bought this guy used simply because you save a little bit of money. It's still a really good chassis. I got it with a bunch of accessories, different butt pads, different cheek pieces, thumb rest, different pieces over here on the other side that push your trigger finger away to make sure you get a 90-degree trigger press. It also came with a full set of internal weights as well as a full set of external weights. I took off a set that goes here and a set that goes here just simply for mobility purposes. I may add them on as I get used to this rifle. It also came with a 2-round match saver that I'll show you guys here on the other side. So it came pretty well equipped, and it was $950, which the bare chassis brand new alone is like $1,350. So I got a pretty good deal on it. I'm going to run it. I'm going to see what my preferences are. If I decide that I love this one, then great. If I decide that I want something else, I could sell it and not really lose much money on this. So MPA chassis, MPA Matrix chassis. So far, I'm pretty impressed with it. I also have a couple different grips for it. I'm playing around with that stuff. So far, I really, really do like it. But again, it's going to be one of those things that I really need to run a full season with this chassis and then kind of come back and tell you guys my thoughts on it. Moving along from the chassis, the next thing we should hit on is the trigger. Tons of different triggers out there. What I opted to go for is the Bix and Andy 2-stage trigger. I come from the AR world, the Geisley world, and I really do like 2-stage triggers for precision work. Trying a couple of the different 2-stage triggers, I was really kind of debating between the Bix and Andy or the Huber. My good buddy Alan actually has both in his PRS rifles, so he took them out to the range and let me play around with them, let me dry fire them back and forth. And what I ultimately settled on was the Bix and Andy. The thing that really kind of led me to the Bix and Andy was after the trigger breaks, it has a little bit of sponge there. And at first I didn't like it, but after Alan explained to me the advantage of it is after you shoot, you're less likely to manipulate the firearm by hitting that wall. There's a little bit of a cushion there, so you could disturb the rifle as little as possible. And after he explained that to me and I played around with him more, it really kind of made me start to appreciate the Vixen Andy, and that's what I ultimately went with. As you guys can see on the screen, it's got a pretty good trigger press here, so pretty impressed with it. The next thing we're going to hit on is going to be the optics system. So what I ultimately ended up with on here is a Leupold Mark V. This is the 7-35 with a PR2 reticle. The PR2 reticle was designed by some pretty high-level PRS shooters. It's designed to give you a Christmas tree for those no-dial stages, but it's not nearly as busy as, say, something like a Tremor 3 or something like that. So it's going to be a pretty good reticle for PRS, and so far in using it in some competitions, I've been pretty impressed with it. Most of the time, you're going to be in that 15 to 20 range for most PRS stages, but it's nice to have the 35 power to dial up to either get a good zero, or if you're shooting at distance. Like yesterday, we were shooting at 1,260 yards away. So at 1,260 yards, it was nice to have that 35 power as long as there wasn't a lot of mirage. Whenever there became a lot of mirage, I kind of dialed back a little bit till the mirage settled down, and then dialed back up to 35. So it was really, really nice for that kind of stuff. The Leupold scope overall is just a really, really good scope. It comes in at a really good price point. You could spend $5,000, $6,000 and you really kind of reach the point of diminishing returns with these scopes. I'd say, this scope sells for right around that $2,000, $2,500 range. Once you jump up to something like an ATACR or something like a Collis 525 or something like a Tangent Theta or something like that, there's tons of different options. But you're really, after you get beyond this point, you're really at the point of diminishing returns. Those scopes, are they better than the Leupold? Probably. However, how much better are they? I don't know. Are they worth the extra $1,000, $2,000 in some cases? It really kind of depends. And the Leupold is just kind of a benchmark. Plus, it's an American company. Big fan of that. The mount that I'm using is the American Rifle Company Embrace mount, 35mm tube to work with the Leupold Mark V here. The Embrace mount's really nice because it's a solid mount. It almost mimics some of the advantages of a spur mount, but it's at a far cheaper price point. This mount comes in around the $260, $270 price point, and that's with a built-in level, which you can move around to a couple different positions. It's a pretty modular mount, pretty well-made mount, and so far I'm really, really impressed with it. I think we covered just about everything, maybe the bipod, which is just a Harris swiveling bipod with an ADM quick mount here. But that's pretty much the gist of this rifle. I put it together, I kind of spared no expense. Getting into the price point, bare rifle minus optics, you're looking at about $3,200 for this rifle. So it's definitely not cheap. However, this is a rifle that I put together with some pretty high level components. Now I shopped around, got some pretty good deals. I ended up getting a 20% coupon code from my local PRS match director for the impact action. Got the chassis used, got a pretty good deal on the Leupold scope. Shopped around for various different parts here and saved a little bit of money where I could. The optics system, whenever you factor that in, I got about $2,000. As I said, I got a really good deal on this Leupold scope. And then the arc mount is about $270 or so. So I got about $5,000 when it's all said and done, maybe $5,200 whenever it's all said and done between the rifle and the optics here. So definitely not the cheapest rifle build I've ever made. Probably one of, if not the most expensive rifle builds I've ever done. But it's a pretty damn good rifle build. And taking it out, I shot my first KYL match with this thing yesterday. And the first two stages, I had some dope problems. I had to true my muzzle velocity a little bit. But after I got that settled in, I started absolutely drilling targets. Really, really impressed with this overall. My first match ever in this long range stuff, I came in 8th place out of like 20 or 30 some shooters. And like I said, that's with the first two stages. I was kind of because my dope was a little off. But once I got that adjusted, I did pretty damn good at the competition and was pretty happy to get a top 10 finish in my first match. So pretty happy with this rifle. All the components worked out really good. Reliability was phenomenal. Gun shoots like an absolute laser beam. I'm super, super happy with it. As I said, I plan on bringing you guys a lot more PRS content along the way. I plan on getting some guys on to talk some different stuff. So if you guys enjoyed this video, enjoy this type of content, definitely drop us a subscribe. If you have any questions at all, feel free to either drop them in the description. You could hit us up on Instagram. I also have an email set up for the channel. You guys can reach out to us that way. There's tons of ways to get in contact with us. As always, guys, remember to train hard, shoot fast, and most importantly, be safe. God bless.